So these people are being stopped from actually fellowshipping in a conference church in another location.
Can I make a real quick point?
I'm going to leave it because Dave's going to start pushing me and I want to just make the point here. What's the time period between 2005 and 2012?
7.
Month to month.
Month to month.
7 what? 7 years. In Bible, what is a year? A time.
Yeah.
3.5 times. The time period between this is how much? 7 times.
To the day, was it? 25, 20 days.
I'm going to give it to the month. To the month, it's 7 times. For those of us who aren't familiar, 2520. Let me ask a question. Is everybody familiar with the 1260 time prophecy? Everybody's familiar with the 1260 time prophecy? 1260 days. 538 to 1798. This 1260 is called 3.5 times. If you look at the work of William Miller, he says the papacy warred against God's people for 3.5 times. Paganism or the daily warred against God's people for 1260, which is 3.5 times, which is 7 times. 2 1260s, 2 3.5 times is 7 times, is the 2520. 7 times between when they started to war against this 2520 or these 7 times, they begin to start shutting people down. I think that March 2012 is when the second angel's message starts to enter into history, into God's church, and there's going to be starting to a divergence is going to begin. We're right on that point now. If anybody can think about this, 3.5 times, with a split in the middle, this should be familiar to you. I'm going to draw a little picture here. When did Christ begin his ministry? AD 27. When did he die? AD 31. When was Stephen stoned? 34. 3.5 years or times. 1 week is 7 times. This 3.5 or 2520 comes up in so many different places.
Well, I don't touch that, please.
This is why it's getting serious if this is correct. Everyone listening to this, if you're on video, wherever you are, you have to see, is this right? If this is correct, and that's correct, and the Millerite history is going to repeat to the very letter in 2 prophecy references we gave, and the second angel's message isn't just something about Babylon being fallen and that's all it is. It's actually dealing with character perfection, because the flip side of that message is righteousness by faith, which is, I'm showing you on a prophetic level, I'm showing the demonstration of that prophecy and how it was fulfilled, how righteousness works and is exhibited in history. You can see how it's going to be exhibited in our history. And if you reject this, if you reject that date and that date, you can't be benefited by that. If you reject that number, that day, this one, there's no help for you. Because by the time you get to here, the pronouncement is made, you have already fallen. Who's making that statement? The ones who are righteous. What made them righteous? The second angel's message, which was the work of the Holy Spirit. And then probation closes and judgment occurs. If you don't believe 1989 and don't accept 2001 and don't accept the 2520, you're already entering into a time period when the second angel's message is coming into history and you're beginning to fall. You're beginning to fall. This history here has to be repeated in our history. Now each of us knows, I hope, when the National Sunday Law happened, this church is going to be decimated and split into 2, is it not? Is there going to be physical separation at this church?
Yes.
Before this event happens, prior to that event, God's going to tell his church what happened. I'll just ask this question. There could be various answers to this, so you don't have to give an answer. But when does probation close for the Jews in the time of Christ? Some people might say AD 34. Some people might say AD 70. But when's the pronouncement made for it? It's made in AD 31 when Jesus, after triumphal entry, he says, your house is left unto you desolate. It's already desolate in AD 31. The pronouncement was made then, and then it's going to come into, then the manifestation of that's going to occur afterwards. The pronouncement that these churches had fallen was made just prior to when it was exhibited that they fell. The same thing's going to happen. If you believe that this church is going to fall, the church militant is going to crumble, and the church triumphant is going to rise up out of those ashes, there's going to be a pronouncement made of that in our history. And when this pronouncement's made, this church is going to turn against those people who make that pronouncement with a ferocity that we can't even begin to imagine. And the great disappointment, the bitterness that John the Revelator felt in Revelation chapter 10 when he ate the little book, which is what we're doing. We're eating the little book of Daniel 11 verse 40 to 45. The Millerites' little book was a book based upon time. When the book was unsealed, it was an unsealing of time. In our history, at the time of the end, Daniel chapter 12, the unsealing of the book is an unsealing of the third angel's message. Ellen White says there are many people who preach the third angel's message and they don't understand what it is. The third angel's message in our history is Daniel 11 verses 40 to 45. And you're going to receive a bitter experience if you enter into that experience under the seven thunders. Because when we start pronouncing this message, you're going to be cut off from the congregation. And there is no one who's going to help you in this. And the stone that's cut out of the mountain in Daniel chapter 2 is this experience that's going on here. Right through this history, as the stone begins to cut out. This history is going to be fulfilled in our history. We've already entered into the phase of the second angel's message, and it's going to be empowered soon. And this empowerment, as it was there, will be two things. Behold, the national Sunday law cometh. If you read Ellen White in Great Controversy, I can't remember the chapter, but I think it's called The Impending Conflict. Ellen White says the pronouncement that the Sunday law is about to occur brings it on. The more we agitate the subject, the more it's going to happen. The second component of the second angels at the midnight cry is we're going to say the church is fallen. This is not to say the church is Babylon, but the church is going to fall, and we will, most people here in the room accept that at Sunday law the church will fall, and I mean the conference structure is going to collapse, and out of that are going to rise up those who are able and fit to give the loud cry message of purified church, which is on a different scheme. It's going to be on the scheme, it's going to be on the structure of the New Testament church. House to house meetings. Everybody sharing what they've got. It's not going to be any hierarchy, not going to be people. I can stop now if your time's finished, or I can carry on.
Ask one question?
Ask a question.
The message. Oh, go on.
I understand everything. The only thing that I'm slightly confused about is where you've gone from 7 times, how you calculated for that, set the 7 times to 25, 20.
Okay, how you calculate 7? I'll do that calculation for you. Okay. Do you know how to calculate from 3.5 times to 1260?
Off the top of my head.
Okay,
no.
we'll do that then. 1 time in the Bible equals 1 year. If you look at the definition of time, when it says time, it's 1 year. Can you give the reference for this? Times, times and a half, and times, time and the dividing of time. Once, I can't remember where the...
Yes, Daniel 7:25.
Okay, Daniel 7:25. If you go to Daniel 7:25, or someone just read. Someone read Daniel
And he shall
7:25.
speak with great words against the Most High. And
Let me
shall
just
wear
stop there. So he shall speak great words against the Most High and shall wear out the saints of the Most High. That's talking about the papacy. It's the little horn power of Daniel 7. And it tells you how long it's going to do that for.
And thing to change time.
Hang on 1 second. Set back. It's 1260 plus 1260 is
Yes.
2520.
Yes.
Oh.
Okay.
I see it now. I know about
Okay.
times time.
Right.
I see it now.
This 7 times is 7 years. It's a type of the 2520. This 2520 comes up over and over again. Either it comes up in this form of 1260 or 126, or it comes up as 7 times. It comes up over and over and over again.
It's all the same
The
thing.
calculation of
It's
this is on the charts as well.
Okay.
How to get
If I've got a few minutes, let me just say this. 1989. How do we pick 1989? Let me go through that really briefly so you can see. And it's going to do with the 2520. I've got 1798, 1844. Then I'm going to pick 1863. In 1863, there's another chart that's produced by this church. It's not endorsed by Ellen White. It's a chart that's been created by the General Conference. The fundamental thing about this chart, compared to this chart in 1850, and this chart, which was made in 1840,